Is it live? Oh, great.
We're
Yeah,
back.
Dooms. I mean, yeah, we're back, guys. We're back. Just taking it back again from the point that Doomy just made now, as to how this labeling has basically given us the language to kind of justify our collective hate of women and our collective suspicion of women, right? Because that's what it is. It's suspicion and hatred of women. It's misogyny, where you are desperate to distinguish the types of women there are, because one, you can't help but admit that you have to coexist with women, right? In the first instance. Two, you can't help but admit that you will at some point fall in love with women, whether it's at a romantic or a platonic friendship-based level. Especially if your sexual orientation leans towards women, right? And so you kind of have to, but you have to kind of distinguish the types of women that are out there, to kind of say, there's my mom, don't mess with my mom. There's my sister, don't mess with my sister. There's a girl that is wifey material who could be my wife, so don't mess with my wife, because they all belong to you, right? And then there's these hoes. There's the hoes, the thoughts that are consumable.
Yeah, and whatever happens to them is their fault.
It's their fault, yes.
Yeah,
it's absolutely their fault.
They're entirely responsible for whatever harm befalls them as a consequence of how they choose to express themselves and express their sexuality.
Yes, absolutely. And then, and that's why we have these politics as men, as fathers, where, we police how our women behave.
Yeah.
And engage with the world and carry themselves in the world.
Yeah.
We police what they wear. We police how they speak, because we don't want our women to be labeled as those kinds of women. Those kinds of, right? Those women.
Because we know what we'd do to them if they weren't our women.
Yes, because those women are up for grabs.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so crazy. It's almost self-defeating, because as soon as women take, like you were saying, take a hold of their own agency and explore themselves sexually, and just become as human as we are, right? Just become as human as we are. They are seen as a threat to this palace of patriarchy that you've built. Because only we are allowed to express ourselves sexually, and only we are allowed to dictate terms as to how one ought to carry themselves into the world, dude. And it's literally how it informed the way how I view women. And back to your point, Bongs, earlier about Drake. I think I've got such a problem, because my affinity to Drake, because I have a strong affinity to Drake. You guys know.
Yeah. Oh, man, we all do.
Yeah. A strong affinity to Drake. And there's the affinity to the fact that he's a suburban kid, and he's a this. There's all of those politics, right?
Yeah.
But what I never really thought about, especially growing up, is the affinity that I had with Drake with regards to how I see women. Right, because Drake is an artist that represents men that want their bread buttered on both sides.
Yeah,
men who want to fall in love, who want to date, who want an ideal family setting at some point, but also a man that can amass so much power that they can kind of accumulate as many women as they could. And that's why there's literally a dichotomy in the songs that he releases. Right? There's a dichotomy. There are songs where he speaks about love lost and falling in love with someone, etc., etc. But there are songs where he speaks about how he's had sex 4 times this week. He can't even explain it. with different women. You know what I'm saying? On Marvin's Room, right? Again, on Marvin's Room, kind of like taking ownership of the woman that he once fell in love with, reclaiming her in that moment. And like, I never really got it, but that's also another big part of what I resonated with as a kid. And so as a result, this is how I would engage the world, right? I would, in one part of my life, be in a committed relationship, super committed relationship, and like Drake, speak about this commitment that I have to this girl. And in another part of my life, I'm committing greatest acts of adultery, but I've got Drake lyrics to back me up because I'm trying to be like that nigga.
Yeah.
You feel me? I'm trying to be like that nigga, so he'll back me up in whatever I'm currently doing, and kind of manipulatively coming back into her life, but oscillating between being in love with a wife material and being this carnal animal that can't control his urge. You know, like Kanye West says, how you stay faithful in a room full of hoes. And that's literally how you know what I'm saying? You oscillate between the two environments, because again, only you are complex, and those women who are up for grabs are there being up for grabs, or are being consumables are there being consumed. I remember,
and then you find yourself making an ethical case for why treating them as consumables or like consumables is okay, right? Because Drake's a good guy and Drake does it.
Yes, and you take it back to it's their fault. They are treated that way. You take it back to that. So I remember, dog, we used to, like, back to what you were saying, to same situation with me. When we host parties, we used to host house parties in high school. Not too proud of that, but whatever. Like, and we had this committee of gents that would host, that would organize alcohol, organize this. And then there would be someone in the committee that organizes the bitches. That's the word we use. Page. And we have to organize them, make sure that they arrive, there's transport, there's blah, 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 blah. Because, you know, this is an incomplete party, you know, because we're going to be consuming alcohol, we're going to be consuming food, going to be consuming this, and we're also going to be consuming women. It's a party of consumption. And all of these are equal. Do you understand?
And what's the point of consuming all of those things if you're not consuming women, right?
If you're not consuming women. So you are in charge of booze, you're in charge of collecting people's money, in charge of transport, and you're in charge of women, because all four of those items are equally important in this social gathering that we're about to have. And that carried itself into varsity as well. You go out and, you know, you want to end your night off with one of them ones. You know what I'm saying? Or you want to go out and make sure that you have girls around, even if nothing's going to happen, but you want to signal to other men in the room that you have power. Because the club itself, for example, will not let you guys in as a squad of 5 without 5 more women.
Exactly.
It's a cycle. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. And all of that, like, we've just developed such sophisticated language to continuously oppress women, and this pop culture that we create and consume, you know, is just perpetuating it. And it sucks that our little brothers are in that particular realm. But gents, like, quick conclusive thoughts from your side. You know, what is a way forward, right? Because now we've laid it all bare. We've spoken about, like, why these things are wrong. In the media space, what then is the way forward? What can you do as an individual guy from a production and consumption point of view? Let's start with you guys.
This question is very difficult because a lot of the time it's convenient to discuss these things and sort of carry on with our lives as normal. Very, very practically speaking, I don't think most of us will stop listening to hip hop going forward. And I don't want to lie and act like any of us will stop listening to hip hop going forward, or that we'll stop partying to hip hop and stuff like that. So on the one hand, it's very difficult because when we wake up tomorrow, we're not going to stop, you know, anticipating the next drop by whoever. And the unfortunate truth is that Chance the Rapper's type of material isn't going to become mainstream tomorrow, whatever the case may be. I think, however, that whenever we make that conclusion that, like, you know, hip hop's not going to die tomorrow, it gives us an easy way to cop out and say, therefore, let's not hold ourselves responsible for the stuff that we consume and the things that we say. So I do think that as men going forward, it's very, very important that we're able to actually discuss and call out in our spaces when it, like, all of the behaviors that we've normalized and meditated on, that we let pass when other men display that type of behavior. It's time that we one, call that out, but secondly, also start discerning which artists are the ones that are pushing this the most and are causing the most men to fail. So, for example, when we had the Drake discussion, which is a very important discussion to have, because a lot of people like to leave out the nice guys like Drake, it's very important that going forward, those sort of narratives are stopped in their tracks. So if a guy comes along to you and starts justifying really shitty behavior towards women, and there's a like, you can hear that there's Drakeness in that, call it out and immediately start having a conversation about why it is that the particular music that they're listening to is informing the thinking that they have at that point in time. I remember when Jay-Z dropped 444 in 2017. We as Jay-Z fans were extremely, extremely excited about that. And I remember celebrating that on social media and so on. And one of my women friends actually called me out for how low the bar is in the rap space, that when a man apologizes for cheating, we celebrate that as though he's doing the work of recalibrating masculinity entirely, which to an extent he was doing in that album. But what she was saying is, just be careful of celebrating a low bar. And being called out in that way was very, very important, because it meant that, sharp, I was going to listen to 444 for the rest of my life. But what it meant is that when I go on social media, I need to be very, very careful of what I'm purporting to be a victory and purporting to be okay to consume. I needed to, so that same day, I went from saying, whoa, Jay-Z's changing masculinity, I remember this day, to literally at 9 o'clock that night posting a long ass essay on Facebook saying, actually guys, I've now come to realize 9 hours later that what we're celebrating here is a very low bar. So I think that as men going forward, we really need to discern those low bars. We need to call them out and remind men that if you are listening to music like that, it just don't normalize it. Don't celebrate even the tiny, you know, call out how small the incremental steps are and how they're not actually leading us to the world that we need to get to. And if you're going to listen to rap music, don't act like morally or ethically it's not deviant, because it is. It is.
It is very deviant.
So,
and damaging.
Yeah, I was like, just to follow on from that, I think if we're going to tell ourselves and tell men who watch these discussions whenever we have them, that they have a responsibility to call out other men when other men say and do deviant things, I think we have the same responsibility to do so with ourselves and when we consume harmful content, right? I think, I think, like Frank says, it might not be realistic to expect men to stop listening to rap music. I can tell you, I might go listen to 99 Problems now because I listen to the Black Album very frequently. But I think, I think we if you're not going to stop consuming rap music or whatever popular cultural content is denigrating towards women, at least have the presence of mind to consume it, to meditate on it, right? And not meditate on it in a way where you imbibe its the messages it's putting across. Do it in a way where it's critical. Do it in a way where you problematize some of the things that are being said in that music. And I think
what did I just watch moment after watching it.
Exactly. Because I think that the benefit of doing that is that, like we've been saying this entire discussion, we're always guilty of ascribing complexity to men. We're guilty of ascribing ourselves complexity. But sometimes it's just bullshit, right? You're just talking, you're just saying harmful things. And sometimes you need to treat that the way it is and call it what it is. So I think I think we need to pierce this veneer of false complexity where artists are concerned. I think we need to, I do think that we need to start holding artists accountable. And I think we need to start making undertakings to do that. But if you're not going to do that, at least have the presence of mind to, like you said, Frank, what did I just watch? And unpack that, whether you're doing it alone or you're doing it with your little brother. And actually, like, with like young boys and teenage boys, or like, you know, men who look up to you, if when you find them consuming content like that, I also think that we have a further responsibility to unpack that with them, right? Because I think we find ourselves exposing our youngest. I mean, all three of us have little brothers, right? And I think we oftentimes find ourselves being the one exposing our kid brothers to harmful content and harmful information.
Definitely.
We find that we're the ones who have inappropriate discussions around them, right? And I think it means taking the responsibilities to going back to Nolo, my little brother, and saying, listen, man, I know, remember that time I said this, and this to you? Like, Frank, that suggestion you made in one of our earlier conversations, that wasn't okay, right? Or, so what are you listening to at the moment? And making them understand what that actually means, right? Reading out, like, I think when Tammy was reading out the lyrics to those songs earlier, it was jarring, actually, you know, like, it's, you're listening to these lyrics and they honestly have no place anywhere. They literally don't. You know what I mean? They endorse sexual assault, sexual harassment across the spectrum, across what we perceive to be the spectrum, right? They, up to the point where they, like I said, with AKA, they endorse rape, right? And I think we have a responsibility for the people who watch what we consume as big brothers, and as, you know, men who have people who look up to them, to unpack that with the people who look up to us.
Absolutely. Very, very good point. We have little brothers. I remember, like, in fact, the reason why I wanted to have this specific conversation was because of my little brother. Because I know that I introduced my brother to rap music.
We did.
I know for a fact that in 2009, when I was listening to Young Money, my brother was around 4 or 5 years old. And that was around the first few times he heard rap music. And he carried on the tradition all the way to this point. And like the other day, I was at home, Koran Fontaine, and I think it wasn't 21 Savage, man. It was just these new kids who are like 19, who are like young, right? In the digital era. Lil Something, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, Lil Something was saying like the heaviest misogynistic stuff. Again, reflecting on it's the same thing that like Lil Wayne was saying in the previous generation, the same thing that Jay was saying in the previous, you know. And I was just saying like, bro, because around that time I was having that conversation was when Serofatso Pule was murdered. And I was trying to make a point to him that the same guy that says these things about women's bodies could very be the same guy that kills a woman's body. The line is so thin, and that's why we framing it as a meditation, because that's what it is. It's a prolonged process of meditating, consuming, and adapting a way of thinking concerning women. And so the first people that we have responsibilities to are our little brothers. As soon as we hear the lyric, as soon as we hear, because we are discerning and woke enough to be able, and my brother was like, Joe, come on, man. I'm sure the people that do those things, that really believe these people's lyrics are crazy people. I'm like, hey, man, remember the people that are rapping here are themselves very broken, and they are speaking to audiences that are also simultaneously very broken. Like when Triple X died, boys were crying, forgetting that Triple X need his girlfriend and choked her to half death. You know what I'm saying? And boys were crying and they were saying he helped them cope with depression. So we must know and understand our idols and know and understand what they do. But two, I think, in as much as we can't really stop people from listening to rap music, even ourselves, I think we must be open to alternatives, eh?
Yeah.
Open to alternatives, even alternatives in rap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is possible to hear rappers that make lyrical content that isn't as provocative. Like Jaden. There are kids out there that are, that are acutely
Tyler
aware.
post 2017.
Tyler posted
post 2017. Yeah, because childhood
2017 though. Wow,
Yes.
Oh, childhood Tyler.
Yeah.
Yo, my God.
No.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying? But those rappers exist.
Yeah.
We should have actually spoken about Tyler and his evolution, because also artists, like people, evolve.
Yeah. Yes.
Evolve from broken places to more enlightened places. And so I think we must encourage listening to alternative music and alternative rappers, and because we love rap and we love stand-up comedy, but Trevor Noah does a better job than Dave Chappelle right now. You know what I'm saying? And that's just that of that. Like,
my boy, just to cut in,
is happening, and he's available. He's there. Yeah,
I'm just thinking
100%.
about. I'm just thinking about like what you said about your little brother saying, but the people who say these things, the people who take those lyrics and action them are crazy, right? And I'm just thinking about how the Me Too movement is proof, like you said, Louis C.K. as an example, how the Me Too movement is proof that when these people say these things, these people do these things.
They mean it. They do it.
They absolutely mean them. And I think, I think if, and that's why I suggested that exercise of just like unpacking the music, or unpacking the stand-up comedy, or unpacking the film you're watching, and interrogating its most plain meaning. Like taking what that person is saying, and in isolation, is that thing okay, right? Is it like it? And I don't think you can ever reasonably get to the conclusion that it is. I don't think that's ever possible.
Never. It's about critical thinking at the end of the day. We can't be passive.
Absolutely.
It's actually in the form. It would never have been distinct a hoe and wife material women. Okay. Look, I think let's, I think his network passed away. So I think we can, like, on that note, proper conclude this conversation. Jumi, thank you so much. Frank, where you at? Thank you so much. And guys, everyone who's watching from home, thank you so much for checking this out. Reflect, and please share your stories. Remember, part of what we're doing is that we're sharing stories. We're sharing our stories. We're not just making objective analysis. But I think,
and we're not preaching.
The only way this thing works is through vulnerability and front and being up and showing how real these things are. Actually, it's not just misogyny in theory; it's misogyny in practice. And we are reforming or trying to reform. So wherever you are right now, give us your stories, share them in the comments on Dumi's Facebook, my Facebook, Pom's Facebook. Soon we'll have our own Facebook page. The future's bright for the work that we're doing here. But yeah, thank you so much. Dooms.
Yeah. See you, man.
Aware.
Sure.